Kokua concealed the bottle under her holoku, said farewell to the old man, and walked off along the avenue. She cared not whither, for all roads were now the same to her and led equally to hell. Sometimes she walked and sometimes ran. Sometimes she screamed out loud in the night, and sometimes lay by the wayside in the dust and wept. All that she had heard of hell came back to her. She saw the flames blaze, and she smelled the smoke, and her flesh withered on the coals. Near day she came to her mind again and returned to the house. It was even as the old man said. Kiawe slumbered like a child. Kokua stood and gazed upon his face. "Now, my husband," said she, "it is your turn to sleep. When you wake, it will be your turn to sing and laugh. But for poor Kokua, alas, that meant no evil. For poor Kokua, no more sleep, no more singing, no more delight, whether in earth or heaven." With that she lay down in the bed by his side, and her misery was so extreme that she fell in a deep slumber instantly. Late in the morning her husband woke her and gave her the good news. It seemed he was silly with delight, for he paid no heed to her distress, ill though she dissembled it. The words stuck in her mouth. It mattered not. Kiawe did the speaking. She ate not a bite, but who was to observe it? For Kiawe cleared the dish. Kokua saw and heard him like some strange thing in a dream. There were times when she forgot or doubted and put her hands to her brow. To know herself doomed and hear her husband babble seemed so monstrous. All the while Kiawe was eating and talking and planning the time of their return and thanking her for saving him and fondling her and calling her the true helper after all. He laughed at the old man that was fool enough to buy that bottle. A worthy old man he seemed, Kiawe said, but no one can judge by appearances, for why did the old reprobate require the bottle? "My husband," said Kokua humbly, "his purpose may have been good." Kiawe laughed like an angry man. "Fiddle-dee-dee," cried Kiawe. "An old rogue, I tell you, and an old ass to boot, for the bottle was hard enough to sell at 4 centimes, and at 3 it will be quite impossible. The margin is not broad enough. The thing begins to smell of scorching." "Brr," said he, and shuddered. "It is true I bought it myself at 1 cent. When I knew not there were smaller coins, I was a fool for my pains. There will never be found another, and whoever has that bottle now will carry it to the pit." "Oh, my husband," said Kokua, "is it not a terrible thing to save oneself by the eternal ruin of another? It seems to me I could not laugh. I would be humbled. I would be filled with melancholy. I would pray for the poor holder." Then Kiawe, because he felt the truth of what she said, grew the more angry. "Ity-tighty," cried he, "you may be filled with melancholy if you please. It is not the mind of a good wife. If you thought at all of me, you would sit shamed." Thereupon he went out, and Kokua was alone. What chance had she to sell the bottle at 2 centimes? None, she perceived. And if she had any, here was her husband hurrying her away to a country where there was nothing lower than 1 cent. And here, on the morrow of her sacrifice, was her husband leaving her and blaming her. She would not even try to profit by what time she had, but sat in the house and now had the bottle out and viewed it with unutterable fear, and now with loathing, held it out of sight. By and by Kiawe came back and would have her take a drive. "My husband, I am ill," she said. "I am out of heart. Excuse me, I can take no pleasure." Then was Kiawe more wroth than ever, with her because he thought she was brooding over the case of an old man, and with himself because he thought she was right and was ashamed to be so happy. "This is your truth," cried he, "and this is your affection. Your husband is just saved from eternal ruin, which he encountered for the love of you, and you can take no pleasure. Kukua, you have a disloyal heart." He went forth again, furious, and wandered in the town all day. He met friends and drank with them. They hired a carriage and drove into the country, and there drank again. All the time, Kiawe was ill at ease, because he was taking this pastime while his wife was sad, and because he knew in his heart that she was more right than he, and the knowledge made him drink the deeper. Now there was an old, brutal haole drinking with him, one that had been a bosun of a whaler, a runaway, a digger in gold mines, a convict in prisons. He had a low mind and a foul mouth. He loved to drink and see others drunken, and he pressed the glass upon Kiawe. Soon there was no more money in the company. "Here you," says the bosun, "you're rich. You've always been saying you have a bottle of some foolishness." "Yes," said Kiawe, "I am rich. I will go back and get some money from my wife who keeps it." "That's a bad idea, mate," said the bosun. "Never you trust a petticoat with dollars. They're all as false as water. You keep an eye on her." Now this word struck in Kiawe's mind, for he was muddled with what he had been drinking. "I should not wonder but she was false indeed," thought he. "Why else should she be so cast down at my release? But I will show her I am not the man to be fooled. I will catch her in the act." Accordingly, when they were back in town, Kiawe bade the bosun wait for him at the corner by the old calaboose, and went forward up the avenue alone to the door of his house. The night had come again. There was a light within, but never a sound, and Kiawe crept about the corner, opened the back door softly and looked in. There was Kukua on the floor, the lamp at her side. Before her was a milk-white bottle with a round belly and a long neck. And as she viewed it, Kukua wrung her hands. A long time Kiawe stood and looked in the doorway. At first he was struck stupid, and then fear fell upon him that the bargain had been made amiss, and the bottle had come back to him, as it came back at San Francisco, and at that his knees were loosened, and the fumes of the wine departed from his head, like mists off a river in the morning. And then he had another thought, and it was a strange one that made his cheeks to burn. "I must make sure of this," thought he. So he closed the door and went softly round the corner again, and then came noisily in, as though he were but now returned. And, lo, by the time he opened the door, no bottle was to be seen, and Kukua sat in a chair and started up like one awakened out of sleep. "I have been drinking all day and making merry," said Kiawe. "I've been with good companions, and now only come back for money, and return to drink and carouse with them again." Both his face and voice were as stern as judgment, but Kukua was too troubled to observe. "You do well to use your own, my husband," said she, and her words trembled. "Oh, I do well in all things," said Kiawe, and he went straight to the chest and took out money. But he looked besides in the corner where they kept the bottle, and there was no bottle there. At that, the chest heaved upon the floor like a sea billow, and the house span about him like a wreath of smoke, for he saw he was lost now, and there was no escape. "It is what I feared," he thought. "It is she who has bought it." And then he came to himself a little and rose up, but the sweat streamed on his face as thick as the rain and as cold as the well water. "Kukua," said he, "I said to you today what ill became me. Now I return to carouse with my jolly companions." And at that he laughed a little quietly. "I will take more pleasure in the cup, if you forgive me." She clasped his knees in a moment. She kissed his knees with flowing tears. "Oh," she cried, "I ask but a kind word." "Let us never one think hardly of the other," said Kiawe, and was gone out of the house. Now, the money that Kiawe had taken was only some of that store of centime pieces they had laid in at their arrival. It was very sure he had no mind to be drinking. His wife had given her soul for him. Now he must give his for hers. No other thought was in the world with him. At the corner by the old calaboose, there was the boatswain waiting. "My wife has the bottle," said Kiawe, "and unless you help me to recover it, there can be no more money, and no more liquor tonight." "You do not mean to say you are serious about that bottle?" cried the boatswain. "There is the lamp," said Kiawe. "Do I look as if I was jesting?" "That is so," said the boatswain. "You look as serious as a ghost." "Well then," said Kiawe, "here are 2 centimes. You must go to my wife in the house and offer her these for the bottle, which, if I am not much mistaken, she will give you instantly. Bring it to me here, and I will buy it back from you for 1. For that is the law with this bottle, that it still must be sold for a less sum. But whatever you do, never breathe a word to her that you have come from me." "Mate, I wonder, are you making a fool of me?" asked the boatswain. "It will do you no harm if I am," returned Kiawe. "That is so, mate," said the boatswain. "And if you doubt me," added Kiawe, "you can try. As soon as you are clear of the house, wish to have your pocket full of money, or a bottle of the best rum, or what you please, and you will see the virtue of the thing." "Very well, Kanaka," says the boatswain, "I will try. But if you are having your fun out of me, I will take my fun out of you with a belaying pin." So the whaler man went off up the avenue, and Kiawe stood and waited. It was near the same spot where Kukua had waited the night before, but Kiawe was more resolved, and never faltered in his purpose. Only his soul was bitter with despair. It seemed a long time he had to wait before he heard a voice singing in the darkness of the avenue. He knew the voice to be the boatswain's, but it was strange how drunken it appeared upon a sudden. Next, the man himself came stumbling into the light of the lamp. He had the devil's bottle buttoned in his coat. Another bottle was in his hand, and even as he came in view, he raised it to his mouth and drank. "You have it," said Kiawe, "I see that." "Hands off!" cried the boatswain, jumping back. "Take a step near me and I'll smash your mouth." "You thought you could make a cat's paw of me, did you?" "What do you mean?" cried Kiawe. "Mean?" cried the boatswain. "This is a pretty good bottle, this is. That's what I mean. How I got it for 2 centimes I can't make out, but I'm sure you shan't have it for 1. "You mean you won't sell?" gasped Kiawe. "No, sir," cried the boatswain, "but I'll give you a drink of the rum if you like." "I tell you," said Kiawe, "the man who has that bottle goes to hell." "I reckon I'm going anyway," returned the sailor, "and this bottle's the best thing to go with I've struck yet." "No, sir," he cried again, "this is my bottle now, and you can go and fish for another." "Can this be true?" Kiawe cried. "For your own sake, I beseech you, sell it me." "I don't value any of your talk," replied the boatswain. "You thought I was a flat. Now you see I'm not, and there's an end. If you won't have a swallow of the rum, I'll have one myself. Here's your health, and good night to you." So off he went, down the avenue towards town. And there goes the bottle out of the story. But Kiawe ran to Kukua, light as the wind, and great was their joy that night. And great since then has been the peace of all their days in the bright house. If you're enjoying these readings, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help a lot. And thank you.